Hello. I wonder if you all can hear me. I guess we'll wait for a few seconds before we begin. Hello, Laura and Shubhra. Am I audible to both of you? Okay, great. So let me start. Uh, for those who don't know me, my name is Anju Bindal, and for the I've been an educator for a very long time, but for the past 10 years or so, I have specifically been focusing on preparing students for tests like SAT and ACT, which are required components for the USA universities, right? So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the contribution of Indore schools to our city and to people anywhere actually who are interested in learning more about the field of education and what's going on, the you know the new trends and new ideas. So by bringing educators and parents together, Indore Schools is facilitating parents' knowledge of what is new and teachers' interactions, seamless interactions, I should say, with parents. Um, so, as we all know, the COVID pandemic has impacted our lives in unanticipated and very significant ways, and we are all seeing the effects of that. So, these ripples have obviously touched every aspect of our lives, and education, school as well as university education, is a part of the fields that are deeply impacted by the COVID scenario. Since I am largely involved in the USA admission scenario, my talk will be focused on American universities and the testing requirements for American universities. So let me begin by first discussing what it is that makes an American college so unique and desirable that despite its tremendous expense, so many parents and so many students want to go there, right? So the most obvious advantages are, of course, academic advantages. Uh, the universities offer so hundreds of courses that are not available to students here. So there's a wide variety of choices, especially for those who don't really want to get into the same rut of engineering or medical, but want to explore other horizons. Even though for those who are planning for engineering, a career in computer sciences and a career in the medical field, the USA is still the best place to go to. Why? Because updated courses, top-notch courses, I should say, amazing facilities, including their libraries, their research facilities, their labs, and their professors. All the best universities have renowned professors who won Nobel Prizes, many of them in their fields. So to be in proximity with such people, such accomplished people, is very inspiring for students. The second most important academic advantage is that it's very flexible. For example, let's say a student wants to go with the intention of doing mechanical engineering. Once he starts his course, he realizes that he's not enjoying it as much as he thought he would, and then he takes some classes in environmental sciences, let's say, and he realizes that that is more to his suited to his temperament and his skills. It's it's super easy to change your courses midway. You can keep changing your courses. When I say courses, I mean the major choice that you make. You can keep changing it for 2 years, as many number of times as you can. So the potential for exploration is vast, right? So in addition to these two obvious advantages, there are a lot of other advantages as well. So as we all know, that today's world is very interconnected, it's very global, and it's just not enough to equip our kids with knowledge. A regular college education will give them the knowledge, might give them the best of knowledge, but it may not impart them with crucial life skills like how to manage in the absence of anybody you know, away from home, how to make your own decisions when you have maybe not your when you don't have your parents around you all the time to discuss all your options, how to be your own person, how to look within yourself and see yourself and understand what it is that you truly want. So away from social expectations and parental expectations, where I've been a parent myself and we all have certain expectations and children do feel sort of bound to satisfy those. So away from the weight of all of these, a child is finally free to introspect, which is a very hard thing to do these days for our kids, because here our life is a race and all we are doing is rushing to catch up, you know, to accomplish. We are so accomplishment oriented and goal oriented, and we feel that okay, if you get a degree from a very good college, it will lead you to a very good job and you will be happy. But but maybe not, because that's the definition of material success, which does not equate happiness. So, for true happiness, a person must know who they are, what makes them happy, what they want. And only when they can align themselves with all of these thoughts can they actually make mature, informed, and independent decisions. And I think sending your children away from you to a place which facilitates this decision making is a great idea, because the further the children go from you, the more they are free to be their own people, which is eventually the ultimate goal of a good education. So, uh, plus, when you're sending them away to a Western country, a developed country, your children learn to adjust in a new culture. They make friends from all around the world, because American universities have a diverse student population, which is very advantageous. So, children acquire an amazing confidence that they would not if they are sheltered. So for all of these reasons, it's a great idea to send them abroad if you can afford it or if they are able to get scholarships. Now, for each aspect that I discuss, I will also discuss potential parental concerns. So one very big parental concern about sending their children to the USA is that it's just so far away. What if they fall sick? What if something were to happen? What if they were to get into bad company? So, uh, well, there are certain risks in sending your children far away, but then the rewards are far, far greater. And I speak from personal experience. I have mentored hundreds of students who've gone out and found meaningful lives, including my own two sons. So, yeah. So, however, all of these advantages we that were at our disposal, some of them are also impacted by this new world that we find ourselves in because of the corona pandemic and social distancing. The last semester got deeply affected, and many students who graduated this year could not experience their graduation like it could have been experienced. And the coming times are also highly, highly uncertain. And in times of uncertainty, we all tend to veer towards what is familiar to us, because we feel that that is the least risk. So, the specific ways in which corona has impacted education in the US, everywhere actually, is that of course we are all now moving towards online education, which has its advantages in the fact that it allows you to continue your education despite the fact that you can't meet your teachers and other students. So that is the advantage. And of course, if you all have been parents, if you all are parents or teachers, you would know that the challenges that online learning poses, right? You simply cannot make the connection. You can impart knowledge, absolutely, but can you motivate, right? So, the process of teaching and learning should be much more interactive than the online platform enables. We all know that, which is why parents are now reconsidering the idea of sending their children abroad. Now, about the idea of sending their children abroad, the challenges are different for different ages of children. For those who have already been admitted to colleges and who were looking forward to joining their courses in August or September, uh, it is the most heartbreaking because, of course, they will not be able to go. The only two options in front of them are either defer your admission for next year, in which case you don't know what you're going to do this year, or take take 1 year online, 1 year or at least one semester online, and both are not very pleasant options because in as I have told you before, in addition to the academic advantages, there are so many non-academic advantages that the students will not be able to take advantage of. So the parental concern regarding this aspect of children who are just about to go and they don't know whether they should defer, that is go next year, or whether they should stick it out and do it online so that they can at least complete their education without a gap. Now the question is hard to answer whether parents should send their children, whether children should opt for online classes or deferral, and it is a very personal one. And I say that if they have some activity, some internship, something that they know that they can do for 1 year, which is going to be to keep them productive, which is going to end up teaching them something, then it's a great idea to take a gap year. There is absolutely no harm in delaying your education for a year, because then by the time the children go to college, they are more mature and they are smarter, and having worked a little bit, they have a better idea of how the world works, so which means they can make better decisions in college when they go away from their parents. Okay. And but so this was for students who were going to go and they don't know what to do. What about the students who are in class 12 and who were going to apply this year to go next year? Everything is in disarray and in chaos. So the admission process is going to be the same, and the admission process is a little complicated, which means they need to submit their grades, they need to submit their extracurricular activities, and they need to submit their SAT scores. Now, some of you may know it that the last two SAT attempts have been cancelled. The SAT happens 5 times a year. Well, I say SAT, but I mean SAT or ACT, both the tests. Both are separate tests, but the objective is the same. They act as entrance tests for the USA. So the May test was cancelled, the June test was cancelled, and we don't know what's coming now, right? So at the SAT score, which is a very, very crucial requirement for the admission, is kind of hanging in balance. So many colleges and some Ivy Leagues amongst them, like Harvard and Cornell, have announced that the SAT is not going to be mandatory to their applications. Now, the reason that the colleges are doing this is very obvious. They want every student to have a chance, and they don't want students to suffer because it's not their fault that because of the COVID pandemic they weren't able to take the test. So this is a way of choosing fairness over rules and regulations, which is wonderful. Now, so see, the SAT has many uses. In addition to it serving as an entrance test, it is also a measure of how ready your child is for college. How and why? Because the SAT has two components. One component is English, that is reading comprehension and grammar understanding. And the second component is math. So colleges abroad consider language and mathematical skills to be essential for success in their university. So if they have a score, like if they have an SAT score, the SAT is a standardized test, which means students all over the world are taking the same test, which means you might have one student applying from Nigeria, one from Azerbaijan, one from India, one from Moscow, and how are you to know? Because there are so many different education systems. So the SAT gives the colleges a common platform to view the students' academic potential. So the users go beyond a mere score, it is a test of college readiness, and it is also a predictor for future college success, because it has been statistically seen that students who score well in their SAT or ACT tests generally go on to do well in college. So that's the advantage of having an SAT score. You prove your academic worth to universities. Now, if the SAT score is not required, then you no longer have access to this common platform to prove your worth. So, many students are wondering whether to attempt the test or not, because apparently in August, College Board has promised. College Board is the organization that makes the test and administers the test all over the world. It's a private organization. So College Board has promised students all over the world that in August they are definitely going to have a test, and if the COVID pandemic still exists, then they are going to make it online. But many students are feeling very discouraged by the idea that so many colleges have declared, they've announced publicly that they will not require the score. They are calling themselves score optional, which means you have the option to not send your score and your application will still be considered. However, it is still very advantageous to take the test if students can do it, because they can take the test in August. The College Board has added one more testing month, which is September, and then there is another test in October, and then there's another test in December. So there are still plenty of opportunities to take the test. Taking the test and getting a good score, though not required, will be seen by colleges if you submit it. And if you submit a good score and the colleges see it, then it's definitely a huge mark in your favor, especially when you're an international student and the colleges don't know all the world's education systems so well. So a 95% in your CBSE English may not pack the same impact as a 750 out of 800 English score in SAT might. So that's why I think there's no need to be disheartened or discouraged by these new developments. Um, the COVID is here now, but it's not going to last. Very soon, the world, maybe in a few months, maybe in another year, is definitely going to go back to normal. All the pressures of life are going to remain. All the advantages that these universities offer are not going anywhere. They will still be required, they will still be needed. So the SAT is a very relevant component of your application, even if it is not required. So I suggest to all people who are reconsidering taking this test to not do so, and to throw themselves for the challenge. Now that there are no summer holidays are upon us, it's a great time to prepare. If any of you have any questions, even in the middle of my talk, please feel free to post them and I would love to answer them. Yeah, so this was about the SAT and why we should take it, even though it is not a requirement anymore, right? So as I said, the testing agencies are trying their best. When I say testing agencies, I mean College Board, which administers the SAT, and another agency called the ETS that is responsible for the ACT. Testing companies are working really hard to provide opportunities for the students by way of online testing and by way of adding more testing months, so that in case students want, there are plenty of chances to still take the test. So now, in the midst of this uncertainty, what are children to do? How are they to manage their time, and how are they to keep themselves motivated? Um, all of us feel a little downhearted from time to time in this situation. It is not the best situation, and it is not the best time for us to feel upbeat and excited about the future, because the end is uncertain. We do hope and we are reasonably certain that this time is going to end, but when, we all don't know, and it's this uncertainty, it's human nature that we do not like things to be uncertain. It's this uncertainty that's making us all not plan anything for the future. But students must remember that their future is at stake. So I would suggest keep abreast of all the news. Don't sink in the rabbit hole of mindless entertainment. Put your time to productive use. If you're not doing anything else, then pick up a book and read it. Uh, as a SAT educator, I would say this is the best time to start preparing for the SATs if you are planning to go abroad. And not just abroad. Many private universities in India also accept the ACT score as an entrance test requirement. So it's highly beneficial for you to take the test. Even if the colleges weren't requiring it, whatever, it is definitely beneficial for you to take the test because your skills will improve. You will become better at understanding the written word. You will become better at writing when your grammar improves. And you will become better at math, at thinking critically. And these are skills that all of us need, and they are definitely going to help us in whatever college course or career that we choose. So, so definitely think about taking the test. It is only going to benefit you. And work on your strengths. If you like to play the piano, practice, practice, practice. If you'd like to write, this is the best time to start a blog. Uh, there are literally hundreds of things that one can do with time that is not spoken for. We don't have to. If you can't go out, then you have so much more time at home. Do not waste it. Do things that you enjoy, yes, but balance it with productive time. And as for parents, uh, COVID will not stay forever. This time will end, and the future is not going anywhere, which means try to continue as though the world is normal, because it's going to be normal in a few days. These ripples of disturbance are temporary, and the benefits that sending your children abroad has are going to remain, right? So I'm afraid that is all that I had planned to talk about. There's a lot I can tell you about the two different tests, SAT and ACT, or about life in an American college. But I would like to know if there's anything specific that you would like to know from me. Any questions? Not really. So let me tell you about the flexibility option of American universities. 6 out of 10 students that go to college thinking that they will do XYZ course or ABC course end up changing their minds and choosing other streams instead. And they are much happier for it, because the what children know when they are in school is but a very tiny fraction of what exists in the world. And going to a foreign university exposes them to the many options ahead of them. So and as I told you, it enhances their personality to no end. It's a real pleasure to meet students who go out for 1 or 2 semesters and then come back to meet me. They're like transformed people, and they're so much more mature. It's a joy to see. This is true for boys and girls both, but especially for girls, because unlike here, where they still have to um, function under uh, social. I I was looking for questions. Could I just scroll through the comments? So unlike boys, girls really blossom when they go out. They blossom. So I'm sorry, I'm just distracted. I'm scrolling through the comments section, and okay, Shubhra has a question, several questions actually. So Shubhra is saying, let us know when the student should start to prepare for the SAT exams. That's an amazing question, Shubhra. Thank you so much. So, specifically preparing for the exam means you go through the SAT material, you see what type of questions they have and practice those questions. So, that specific preparation should happen 3 or 4 months before the student is planning to take the test. However, the test is nothing but a test of your fundamental skills in English and your fundamental skills in math. So there is no time like the present, whether your child is in class 7 or 8 or 9, 10, 11, just make sure that they read regularly. And when I say they read regularly, uh, try to make them vary what they read. They should read novels and whatever they enjoy, absolutely, but make them also read informative texts like articles in magazines, so that their comprehension, their understanding of the world, and their ability to synthesize an argument and analyze it develops. Have lots of discussions with your children. Even when they see a movie, ask themselves what was it they liked about it and why was it so, and present your own opinions. So the more children learn to practice thinking on their own based on what they have seen or read, the better prepared they are to answer the comprehension, the interpretive type of comprehension questions that they encounter. And they can work on their vocabulary. They're never too young to work on their vocabulary. So English wise, I would say, take an interest in reading, take an interest in imbibing new words. When I say imbibing new words, I definitely don't mean start mugging up hundreds of new words every day, because that's the least effective way of expanding your vocabulary. What you absolutely must do is, if the child is reading a book, say, and if he or she encounters some words that she doesn't know, write them down, install a dictionary on your phone. I mean, work with new technologies and new resources that you have. So a dictionary on your phone will instantly tell you the meaning. You don't have to open an actual dictionary. Virtual dictionaries are absolutely great. Or if the child is reading on a Kindle, they have to just press on the word and the meaning will appear. All that is required is for the child to be curious and to take an interest in learning. That is something that parents can encourage and motivate it from the very beginning. Make uh, make understanding of concepts their goal, not getting good marks in school. If they are able to set their own schedule, make up their own goals, and work on their own for their test, and get a 70%, whereas another child who's totally managed by his parents is getting 90%, then your child's 70% is very well earned, and it's going to benefit him a lot more later. So whenever your child is making independent decisions and driving their own schedule, your child is learning so much more. The seeds are being sown for future development. Right now, you may not see any growth in that, but later, this is what is going to blossom into a fully functioning, independent adult. So, these are the skills you need to motivate and encourage in your child. So now next, Shubhra's next question is, what all extracurricular activities will increase the weight of application? Wow. Okay, that's a big question. So Shubhra, there are no check boxes that you have to tick as far as extracurricular activities are concerned. What the point of view of the colleges is when they ask for extracurricular activities is simply to see how interested is this child in things around him. How interested is this child in exploring what he or she might enjoy, right? Because, so there's, okay, having said that, so any extracurricular activity is fine as long as it shows depth of passion and commitment. How do you show passion and commitment? By pursuing activities for a long time, which also shows discipline. So let's say if the child plays the piano, for how long has he been playing the piano? If he plays the piano, how has he utilized his skill? Has he taught this skill to maybe others, some students in a government school, or has he created a student band in his school, or does he participate in concerts? There are hundreds of ways to utilize your skills. So development of skills and utilization of skills over a long period of time shows commitment, dedication, and discipline. So it's not about how I did extracurricular activity A, B, C, D, E, I'm done. No, it's about, are you committed enough? Are you disciplined enough to, to continue with what you have started? Right? So it can be tennis, it can be swimming, it can be piano, it can be writing, as long as there's depth in it. So passion and commitment and discipline are the three things that increase the weight of the application, Shubhra, and these are demonstrated through the extracurricular activities. I hope I have been able to answer your question. Now, Shubhra has another question. College cost and job prospects through campus selection. Which colleges are better in this respect? No, there is no college that is better for job prospects. Yes, big name colleges like Ivy Leagues and Ivy Plus colleges definitely carry a big weight on carry some weight on a student's CV. But more than that is, did the student get a really good grade while he was in college? What did he do apart from his studies that shows that he is a well-rounded individual? Right? So I have known students who've gone to very mediocre colleges and come out with amazing prospects because they took the effort to build relationships with their professors who gave them great letters of recommendations. They took the effort to do really, really well in their academics, which gave them great opportunities for a master's or a good job. So it's not about where the child goes at all, it's about what the child does wherever he goes, whether it's in India or abroad or anywhere else. It's all about how you conduct yourself, how much passion do you show, how much curiosity do you show, how much willingness to work hard do you show, how much grit do you show. So, grit is a big buzzword these days in the education circle, which is essentially the capability of not being discouraged by any difficulties, but persevering despite difficulties. So, again, these are qualities that are reflected in the grades, in the professor's recommendations, in the extracurricular activities that the student does while in college. Okay. Another question that Shubhra has pinned is recommended books or courses for SAT and subject SAT and AP courses. So, I'm afraid I cannot really tell you about AP courses because I don't teach AP courses, but I do know that there are a lot of amazing online resources. About SAT, remember I said College Board is the organization that conducts the SAT. So they have a book, the official guide, which is really good. In addition to that, College Board has partnered with Khan Academy and they release a lot of free practice material there, which is the best. So apart from these two resources, I would say don't do anything else. Stick to these two resources. They are the most genuine ones for SAT. And in addition to these, as I said, let the child read, let the child think independently, let the child be very, very strong in maths. The basic concepts in maths should be very, very well grounded. These are the things that will help the child in the SAT. Uh, now, uh, and the SAT subject test. So, College Board has a book for SAT subject tests also. So you need two books for the subject test. One is the College Board guide, and one is a Barron's for that particular subject. And the combination of these two books is usually considered enough for preparation. Okay. Wow, Shubhra, thank you so much. You have another question. What are the best subjects to choose while taking admission? Let me tell you a very nice story. My son, my younger son, he was a PCM student in school. He was the deputy head boy. He was a very, very good in academics. He was in the top one or two of his class all the time. He went to college saying, I don't want to do sciences anymore. I'll probably do a business course. He took a few business classes. He hated them. He shifted his major then to computer science, did computer science for 3 semesters, and he hated it. Finally, he tried microbiology. He hated it. Then last year he took up environmental sciences and he is loving it and he's finding amazing opportunities in the field. As we speak, he chose to not, he's in his final year of graduation, he chose to not come back in the COVID scenario. He stayed there, finished his semester there, and now he'll be going for an internship in the US itself, which is not online, but he'll be staying at a place, but he'll be safe. So the point is, of course, the best fields are STEM related. And of course, data science is very hot as a career choice. Computer technology is going to be more and more and more relevant. So anything that the child chooses in the field of computer education is going to be extremely relevant. Having said this, please remember the reason I told you my son's story was let the child choose what he or she likes to study. And that will ensure that the child will be happy, will do well, because the ultimate aim of education is for everyone to understand what makes them happy and reasonably materially successful. Uh, so balance that with a practical decision of what it is that is that will give you material and career success as well. So anything digital, computer related, graphic design, data science, um, yeah, I would say these fields. Okay. What else? Okay, Vaishali, hello Vaishali. I can see a question by Vaishali Deshmukh, which is saying, my daughter just began 11th grade. What will be the best time to take the SAT and ACT? Another great question. So, although I have a few students who are preparing, your daughter's age, who are preparing now, but I would say wait. Because right now, students who are in class 12 are going to be rushing to take their tests because they absolutely, most of them want to have a score before they apply. So, let your daughter study a little bit of maths in school because some 11th class concepts are also asked about in the SAT maths section. So I would say she could look at October or December this year as viable months to take the test. Now, once she decides which month she wants to take the test in, then she should plan for 4 months before that to start studying extensively for the test. This gives her enough time to, let's say she takes an October attempt and the score is, she's not very happy with the score, she can repeat the test in December or next year in May. So there's no pressure then, there's ample time to repeat the test, which most people do pursuing in their pursuit of a better score. Okay, thank you guys for your words of appreciation. Okay. So I think I have gone through all the questions that I saw. Is there anything I missed? You can remind me again, please. No? So guess I guess we could call an end to today's meeting. Thank you again, Indore Schools, for giving me the opportunity to connect with concerned parents and parents who are motivated, and all of you lovely people. Um, Stay home, stay safe, and stay motivated. Thank you so much. Goodbye.